are about to experience Jackson Snyder Presents. Direct from the Vero Essin Yahad, a Hebrew Nation radio original program. JSP is a variety show seeking out Jewish and Christian origins, religion, theology and history, and doing so in a fashion that is both educational and entertaining. Welcome to Jackson Snyder Presents.
Shalom, my friends out there in Hebrew Nation, those sharing with me the great kingdom of El Elyon, the highest king of all, and his son, Messiah, potentate of the millennium. I have something that might be of interest to you today. I have put together a little mashup, I think you call it, a mashup of hydroxychloroquine. Comments from doctors, newscasters, and the President of the United States. Does hydroxychloroquine, in conjunction with zinc and steroids, cure COVID-19? Does Dr. Fauci, he say no. Every newscaster in world say no. Doctors who they all make out as crackpots say yes. Ex-patients who have recovered from COVID-19 say yes. Who are we to believe? And if you had COVID-19, and I'm sure someone who is listening today has, or if you thought you might have, would you take hydroxychloroquine along with the zinc for your treatment and listen to those who have had success with it? Or listen to newscasters, Dr. Fauci, and plenty of other liberal crackpot politicians, and not use it, even if it can't harm you anyway. I think that if I had COVID-19 and somebody recommended that I take capsules made out of an old dirty towel, I would take them. Even if I didn't believe the towel could do anything, if for no other reason than the placebo effect. So here is my mashup. It's about 20 minutes long. Then we're going to talk to a special guest, a celebrity whom you know that has his own opinions. This is your brother Bogdan Schruumkoff, and I will talk to you again on the other side.
President Trump once again saying he supports that controversial doctor who said masks don't work and who pushed hydroxychloroquine along with the president, even though his own team of advisors and doctors have said it's ineffective and dangerous for treating COVID-19. That doctor has said in the past that demons and witches have caused illnesses. Well, tonight, Joe Biden taking aim, saying the doctor is an absolute disgrace, and a key supporter of President Trump, a congressman tonight, has now tested positive for the virus just before he was going to board Air Force One. ABC's Mary Bruce on it all.
President Trump today doubled down on his support for a fringe doctor who's spreading lies about the coronavirus, even after learning she claims demons and witches cause illnesses.
I was very impressed by her. Know nothing about her. I had never seen her before, but certainly you could put her up and let her have a voice.
Trump had retweeted a video of that doctor denouncing the use of masks and promoting hydroxychloroquine, even though the nation's top health officials warn the anti-malaria drug is ineffective at treating COVID-19 and potentially dangerous. Joe Biden today urged the president to knock it off.
President Trump should stop tweeting and start doing something about it, damn it, and stop going on and talking about this crazy woman he talked about last night about who's an absolute disgrace.
One of the people who spread that misleading video, the chief of staff for Republican Congressman Louie Gohmert. Today, Gohmert announced he's tested positive himself.
I'm asymptomatic. I don't have any of the symptoms that are listed as part of COVID-19.
The congressman has frequently been spotted on the Hill without a mask. Sources tell us his staff has even been scolded for wearing them.
Masks really complicate things. This is the first time in American history when we have punished or restricted people who were not sick.
Just yesterday, he was seen walking alongside Attorney General Bill Barr, neither of them in a mask. Barr's staff says the Attorney General is now getting tested. The congressman sat for hours in 2 separate hearings yesterday. Tonight, senior lawmakers from both parties going into quarantine. Gohmert himself only learned he was positive because he was required to take a test before he was set to fly with the president.
Now that I apparently have it, I will be very, very careful to make sure I don't give it to anybody else.
Today, as he prepared to drive to Texas to self-quarantine, Gohmert promised to wear a mask, quote, religiously.
All right, so let's get to Mary tonight, because we know moments ago House Speaker Nancy Pelosi now announcing anyone on the House floor must wear a mask. Mary, you reported there tonight that Joe Biden is taking aim again at the president and his handling of the pandemic, but Biden making news himself overnight after that image appeared of his own notes while speaking to reporters before we came on the air last night. In those notes, we could all see the talking points on Senator Kamala Harris. A lot of people trying to read the tea leaves in the last 24 hours.
It's still creating a buzz on click2houston.com. Channel 2 investigator Joel Eisenbaum's interview with the KD doctor featured in a controversial viral video she claims there's a cure for COVID-19. Tonight, Channel 2 investigator Mario Diaz is looking at another Houston doctor who's making the drug a staple for his patients, plus his thoughts on it being a cure. Mario?
Yeah, Chris, before we heard from Stella Emanuel, the doctor that had her comments throughout the course of this week, there was a lot of controversy surrounding the drug that I am holding in my hand right here. And there's been one doctor here in Houston who has embraced this now for quite some time. In fact, several months. He views it as a key to his success.
You should use hydroxychloroquine early.
The Channel 2 investigates interview still generating significant buzz.
If they put everybody on hydroxychloroquine, schools will open back up.
Local doctor Stella Emanuel passionately touting the positives she has seen surrounding the drug hydroxychloroquine.
We see patients day 1, we put them on hydroxychloroquine, they come back day 7, day 10, and they're negative. It eradicates the virus. It is a cure.
Dr. Joseph Verone is another Houston doctor who believes in the controversial drug.
I use it for every patient.
Dr. Verone says he has experienced success in over 300 patients. Hydroxychloroquine is a component in his recipe for success.
I tell them this is part of all the cocktail of what we're going to do.
Dr. Verone believes in it because of what he has seen from patients who were never provided the drug prior to visiting his facility.
We've had patients that actually get better when we give hydroxychloroquine.
And these are patients that went to other hospitals first?
That is correct.
Since Channel 2 Investigates first highlighted Dr. Verone's hospital and his use of hydroxychloroquine in May, the national media has visited his facility and chronicled his success during a time when the drug has been debated.
It is a drug that has been politicized up to the wazoo.
He is quick to admit he is uncertain of the drug's ability all by itself.
Does this by itself make a difference in survival? The bottom line is, I don't know.
Important to note as Verone has concerns over the fallout from some of Dr. Emanuel's comments.
The small amount of credibility that you had on hydroxychloroquine because of some of the statements that she made may go away.
And one of the concerns that Dr. Verone had about those statements regarding this drug was the use of it as a preventative measure before anybody goes to a facility like this one. He does not advise that. He believes that this drug should only be used inside of a hospital and under the direct supervision of a doctor. The Texas Medical Board did put out a statement this afternoon talking about everything that's taking place this week with regards to some of the claims that have been said. They reminded the public that as of right now, there is no cure for this virus. Live in North Houston, Mario Diaz, keep your seat. Channel 2 News.
Thank you.
This morning, one of the doctors featured in a now banned viral video about the coronavirus is speaking out.
Of course they think I'm dangerous because I'm speaking truth.
Dr. Stella Emanuel was part of a video Monday that featured a group of doctors claiming without evidence that there's a cure for COVID-19. In the clip, Emanuel pushes hydroxychloroquine as part of a cure for the disease, a view largely discredited by health experts. The president retweeted the video, which was eventually taken down by Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube for violating misinformation policies.
I was very impressed with her and other doctors that stood with her. I think she made sense, but I know nothing about it.
Despite the backlash, in an interview with NBC affiliate KPRC, Dr. Emanuel continued to claim hydroxychloroquine could be part of a COVID-19 cure.
I don't know why people are getting crazy about this.
Well, that's a minority view on whether or not it's a cure. That's
let
for
me tell you
sure.
something. When you have some 300, 400 patients and none of them has died, it is not a minority view.
Dr. Anthony Fauci says scientific data doesn't support her claim.
All of those trials show consistently that hydroxychloroquine is not effective in the treatment of coronavirus disease or COVID-19.
There are currently no drugs approved by the FDA to prevent or treat COVID-19, and the National Institutes of Health recommends against using hydroxychloroquine for the treatment of the virus. Beyond her controversial coronavirus claims, Dr. Emanuel has also drawn criticism for pushing unusual conspiracy theories and for her beliefs about demon spirits and disease.
It's off the beaten path to say that demons are sleeping with you overnight.
But demons are sleeping with people.
Are they?
Yes! Demons exist.
Now, Dr. Emanuel admits that she herself takes the drug and that she's treated hundreds of patients with it. Savannah, she says she plans on sharing her data at a later date.
Two questions quickly. First, can you clarify your position on the efficacy of hydroxychloroquine after you retweeted a video making claims that it is effective?
I wasn't making claims. It's recommendations of many other people, including doctors. Many doctors think it is extremely successful, the hydroxychloroquine, coupled with the zinc and perhaps the zithromycin. But many doctors think it's extremely good, and some people don't. Some people, I think, it's become very political. I happen to believe in it. I would take it. As you know, I took it for a 14-day period, and I'm here, right? I'm here. I happen to think it works in the early stages. I think frontline medical people believe that too, many. And so we'll take a look at it. But the one thing we know, it's been out for a long time, that particular formula, and that's essentially what it is, the pill. And it's been for malaria, lupus, and other things. It's safe. It doesn't cause problems. I had no problem. I had absolutely no problem. Felt no different. Didn't feel good, bad, or indifferent. I tested, as you know. It didn't get me, and it's not going to hopefully hurt anybody. So we know from that standpoint, because it's been so many years, from a safety standpoint, it's safe. I happen to think, based on what I've read a lot about hydroxy. I happen to think that it has an impact, especially at the early years. There was some very good tests at Ford, and the doctor from Yale came up with a very, very strong testament to it. There was a group of doctors yesterday, a large group, that were put on the internet, and for some reason the internet wanted to take them down and took them off. I guess Twitter took them off, and I think Facebook took them off. I don't know why. I think they're very respected doctors. There was a woman who was spectacular in her statements about it, that she's had tremendous success with it, and they took her voice off. I don't know why they took her off, but they took her off. Maybe they had a good reason, maybe they didn't. I don't know.
What happened to this nursing home was one of the first big tests of its kind in Texas.
I thought the risk of seeing 15% of that nursing home die was just not an acceptable risk.
A third of patients said this place in Galveston County got the coronavirus. So Dr. Robin Armstrong used hydroxychloroquine pills to treat 39 of them.
Most of the patients have done well.
You said most of the patients have done well. Somebody listening to this might say, well, hey, he qualified it with most. Have there been some who have not done well with it?
Well, I would say all the patients have done well.
On Sunday, these patients finished their 5 days of treatment, and Dr. Armstrong said no one experienced any side effects. But this 65-year-old anti-malarial drug has suddenly become controversial. President Trump said it was promising for COVID-19 patients. Armstrong admits he supports the president, but Democrats correctly caution that this drug remains unproven for the coronavirus.
Well, let's say that the president didn't bring this drug up. Would we be having this conversation now, I wonder?
Sir, that is about the best question I've had so far. And I don't think so. I don't think this would even be a conversation, honestly.
Supply and demand have created a new side effect.
And I've been on this medication for about 20 years or so.
Hydroxychloroquine helps Sandy Dixon live with lupus, but she says it is harder to find now.
I need the medicine every day to be able to function.
Kroger told us it has hydroxychloroquine in stock. CVS and Walgreens said they are now limiting these pills to ensure that everyone gets some. And when a COVID vaccine is finally developed, Dr. Armstrong says he no longer plans to prescribe these pills for this use. In Dallas, I'm Jason Whiteley.
President Trump once again saying he supports that controversial doctor who said masks don't work and who pushed hydroxychloroquine along with the president, even though his own team of advisors and doctors have said it's ineffective and dangerous for treating COVID.
Soldiers wounded in a war and then heading right back to the front lines. Some doctors who have recovered from COVID-19 are going right back to work.
And they're returning with valuable information. CBS 2's Rachel Kim spoke to one of them today.
I felt like helpless, and I felt like a patient. And, you know, I've a totally different feeling when you're not coming to the room to treat someone, when you need the help from others.
Dr. Shahinaz Solomon has been a Torrance family physician for 22 years, but in early March, she became a coronavirus patient. She believes she may have been infected by one of her patients during a physical exam. He didn't know he was infected at the time, but he did tell her he had attended a birthday party in the South Bay where several guests later tested positive. Soon, he tested positive, and so did Dr. Solomon.
I started having high fever, severe headaches, severe body aches, coughing.
When her coughing got worse and the fever wouldn't go away, Dr. Solomon was admitted to Torrance Memorial Hospital. She allowed nurses to record this video to help other medical staff distinguish and identify the deep, intense, chronic COVID-19 cough.
You're in complete isolation. You hear the room beside you, they got intubated, or the room beside you coded, and someone in isolation passed away by himself. So it was quite like, you know, there was a lot of fear.
Fortunately, Dr. Solomon didn't have to be put on a ventilator. She responded to her treatment, which included azithromycin, zinc supplements, and hydroxychloroquine, an anti-malarial drug some doctors have prescribed for COVID-19 patients. Dr. Solomon says hydroxychloroquine can cause side effects like liver toxicity. She said her enzyme levels went down once she stopped taking it.
And I'm very thankful to God that it worked. I do recommend now because we don't have other options and we don't have enough studies.
After 9 days in the hospital, then 9 days at home to recover, Dr. Solomon is back on the front lines, armed with first-hand knowledge of COVID-19.
Patients has been calling, and it's my responsibility to help them as well. So I just felt it's my duty, and I feel like I'm ready to go and I can help.
Dr. Solomon also says she's concerned about the long-term effects of COVID-19 in our systems. She hopes research will be conducted to identify and track any potential chronic problems. Rachel Kim.
I do want to ask you about hydroxychloroquine. The president was pushing it pretty strong again yesterday. You said you have prescribed this. I want to talk to you about the effects you're seeing and what it might do for people who take it normally outside of coronavirus and a possible shortage of medicine for them.
Exactly. What we're finding clinically with our patients is that it really only works in conjunction with zinc. So the hydroxychloroquine opens the zinc channel, zinc goes into the cell, it then blocks the replication of the cellular machinery. So it has to be used in conjunction with zinc. We are seeing some clinical responses in that regard. There are people that take it regularly for other disease processes. We have to be cautious and mindful that we don't prescribe it for patients who have COVID that are well. It really should be reserved for people that are really sick in the hospital or at home very sick that need that medication. Otherwise, we're going to blow through our supply for the patients that take it regularly for other disease processes.
But what you're saying is you're prescribing it and it is working for COVID-19 patients.
Every patient I've prescribed it to has been very, very ill. And within 8 to 12 hours, they were basically symptom free. And so clinically, I am seeing a resolution that mirrors what we saw in the French study and some of the other studies worldwide. But what I am seeing is that people are taking it alone by itself, it's not having efficacy.
Okay, wow, that's very interesting news, and hopefully we can get that more widespread. Dr. Anthony Cardillo, thank you so much for your information.
Hello, I'm Mark Brown. Click the ABC7 logo to subscribe.
Welcome back, everybody. Last night, a team of researchers said nearly 70 drugs might be effective in treating coronavirus. Some of the medications are already being used to treat other diseases. One, called chloroquine, was heavily talked about last week during a coronavirus task force briefing. It's used to treat malaria and some other conditions. The president called it a game changer, but the nation's top infectious disease expert gave a swift warning, saying the evidence the president was talking about was just anecdotal. This morning, we are hearing exclusively from a local doctor who says he successfully treated a COVID-19 patient using a similar drug. Dr. Danny Polito, a pulmonary and critical care specialist at Baptist Beaches Center, joins us this morning. Dr. Polito, you posted this outcome to Facebook this weekend, and so far it has been shared more than 6,000 times. This is really giving people some hope. And just talking with you a minute ago, you said there's a lot out there that should give people hope.
Good morning. Yes, and thank you for having me here. I just wanted to emphasize both to treatment for patients with COVID, both for the community and for healthcare providers to understand that there are treatment regimens that are utilized and being discussed at a variety of different levels, both in the Baptist Health System, national and international. So when we had this patient present and the decision ultimately with the discussion with our infectious disease colleagues that we should go ahead and treat, we came up with the best protocol based off what we can gather at the time, and we decided to use the regimen treatment of hydroxychloroquine with the combination of zinc for the treatment of this patient.
Talk about what the patient's symptoms were, because you said he came in, really had no other risk factors except for his age, but his symptoms progressed very quickly.
Exactly, and obviously for patient privacy, I'm not going to specifically talk about the patient himself, but he was a 68-year-old gentleman who presented. He had a fairly healthy background, no comorbidities that we would hear. No, he was not diabetic. He didn't have heart failure. Didn't have COPD. He worked at home, and he really denied any risk factors for COVID. So he was very low on our scale for potential for COVID patient. But fortunately for our team and for the patient himself, we went ahead and decided to isolate and to screen for him. Given the fact that on presentation, his presenting symptoms was shortness of breath and cough. For a week prior to his arrival to the hospital, he tried calling his primary care, but his primary care was basically told him that they were overwhelmed and that he should go to the hospital. At the presentation, he was originally found to have low oxygen levels, at the time requiring about 3 to 4 liters of oxygen. So the decision was to bring him to the ICU for close observation, monitor him with all the with the personal protective equipment that we have for the healthcare, and to initially what we did was to treat as a potential just bacterial bronchitis plus minus pneumonia.
Right, and you said you got him tested for COVID. Those test results weren't in when you really started to see the escalation. We have a picture that you have given us that really shows what his lungs look like from day 1 and then day 4. So explain what we're looking at here.
Correct.
Doug, you are hearing that some treatments in other countries may be helping people with COVID-19. Medical reporter Meg Ferris wanted to see if those treatments are available for us in our local hospitals.
Clinical trials are already underway for many new therapies, and we're working on scaling these to allow many more Americans to access different drugs that have shown really good promise.
After President Trump's announcement today about promising treatments for COVID-19, we wanted to see what that means to us in Southeast Louisiana.
Have you used it at UMC on any patients who are really suffering?
Yes, we have been using hydroxychloroquine in patients with some with suspected and some with confirmed COVID infection who have moderate or severe and even critical disease.
LSU Health infectious disease physician Dr. Meredith Clement says the results locally have been variable, but promising in other places.
I do know that China is reporting that in 100 patients with it, all patients did extremely well.
She and other local doctors are also looking at very early, small, unpublished studies overseas, combining hydroxychloroquine, used for treating lupus and rheumatoid arthritis, and the antibiotic azithromycin.
And they did show that the viral loads came down.
Dr. Clement says they're also using an antiviral drug that treats the Ebola virus here locally called remdesivir. But she warns all of these medications, along with chloroquine, used for decades to treat malaria, need more studies.
These drugs are investigational. We are in the early days, and we have only preliminary data to work with.
And she has some concerns if there were to be a shortage for people with lupus and rheumatoid arthritis. Meg Ferris, Eyewitness News.
Well, even though there are decades of experience with these drugs and they are generally safe, there are concerns about side effects.
If you've ever had sex in your dream, you have a spirit spouse. If you've ever slept with somebody in your dream, you have an incubus or succubus. Serious gynecological problems. Most of them are caused by the spirit husband, spirit wife.
I'm afraid I have a few questions about it. With the people reporting these things, first of all, what do newscasters, weathermen, and token women know about medical science? Like, did they go read in their medical dictionary about this thing? And another thing I'm wondering about here, what are medical doctors doing, giving their informed opinion about demons and witches? What do they know about such things? Many of them don't even know about medicine because they haven't treated a patient in 25 years. I went to my doctor a couple weeks ago, asked him about coronavirus, and he said, I have not treated one patient with this. Yet he took full precautions. When we come back after break, we'll talk to somebody that knows something about one of those subjects. AD@gmail.com. And let me remind you, you are listening to Jackson Snyder Presents with your host tonight, Bogdan G. Schruumkoff. thank you for listening. We'll be right back. Jackson Snyder Present is back. Join us now for more of this interesting discussion.
Hello, my friends. Today I've been looking into this person, Stella Emanuel, the doctor that's been in the news lately, who is very controversial concerning coronavirus and some of her claims and beliefs. Just trying to find out a little more about her to make up my own mind whether what she does or is really of any consequence in today's wacky world. So I've been going through some articles. Unfortunately, I couldn't find the video whose link was tweeted by President Trump. It seems like that's been taken off every place. However, about a blue million more have popped up here and there, and I picked up a few articles that sounded interesting. I'm not going to read them all, I'm just going to hit a few points. And I'm curious to find out, regarding her beliefs, whether I might have any beliefs in common or any beliefs that I would personally concur with.
Do you concur?
I concur.
I concur.
I concur.
I concur. I concur.
Concur. I concur. Affirmative. Keep this under your hands until and off the street.
And more than that, I would like to see some comments regarding what you consider to be true or false, substantial or insubstantial, verifiable or hype. And so I'm starting over on Yahoo News, and the article is Stella Emanuel, the doctor behind unproven coronavirus cure claim. And this article confirms that the viral video in which she appeared, the one that was retweeted by Trump and one of his sons, have been taken down. We would certainly expect that on Facebook and Twitter. And the comment that President Trump made in regards to her, he said she was very impressive. I see that she was born in Cameroon, which is an African country. She does speak with an accent, an African-style accent, and she's quoted as saying that she had tremendous success with hundreds of different patients, and Trump said that her voice was important, though he knew nothing about her. Of course, another statistic here is that she is a Christian pastor, and that the speech of which the video was taken was executed at the U.S. Supreme Court in Washington and was first published by Breitbart last Monday, a couple of days ago, although I went to Breitbart and I couldn't find it there anymore either. She works with a group of medics, the America's Frontline Doctors, and she says nobody needs to get sick. This virus has a cure. It's called hydroxychloroquine. And then she claims to have treated over 350 patients without one death. Of course, it doesn't say they were 350 COVID patients. Some might have been toenail fungus or independent hemorrhoids, but I guess we can assume that she's talking about flu patients. And if she treated 350 and had not one death, then she's doing considerably better than the national averages. At first, we had a lot of hope about hydroxychloroquine, but of course, since the first, doctors' consortiums have said that no, it won't do anything to even help coronavirus, and that placebo was just as effective. Of course, the World Health Organization, WHO, as in WHO killed Africa, has quit doing trials with it, saying it's worthless in the case of coronavirus. And the U.S. Food and Drug Administration cautions against using it to treat coronavirus, reporting that, quote, serious heart rhythm problems and other health issues have occurred. Dr. Fauci says he knows about every single good study. I guess those are the studies that failed. Randomized control studies have shown that hydroxychloroquine is not effective. It's like somebody playing cards. They might have a ace or a 2 in their hand, but they're not going to tell anybody. Bluffing. And I see that Dr. Emanuel has called on Dr. Fauci to turn over a urine sample to prove to us folk that he's not taking hydroxychloroquine right now. And I'm almost certain that he is, because if you had an incurable disease and you had access to a medicine that even in the popular opinion that would do something to help alleviate your symptoms, you'd certainly be using it. That's why so many people are sucking down a tablespoon of vinegar every day or drinking Essiac tea. Just as Dr. Emanuel was born in 65. This is an event alarm. She has a medical degree from the University of Calabar, which is in Nigeria, and a valid doctor's license, according to the Texas Medical Board. That she is the founder of Firepower Ministries in Houston, which she's used, and I quote, to promote conspiracies about the medical profession, unquote. Her sermons are available on YouTube. And just a few years ago, she alleged that alien DNA was being used in medical treatments and that scientists were cooking up a vaccine to prevent people from being religious. Does that sound possible to you? It certainly does sound possible to me. Perhaps she should turn over a little proof there. What alien DNA are they using? Where did they get it? And if they were cooking up a vaccine to prevent people from being religious, I think that they have been successful with that for at least 40 or 50 years now. She claims also that medical conditions may have been caused by witches and demons, a common enough belief among some evangelical Christians. Not just Christians, but a lot of people think that. I think that. I know there have been psychosomatic illnesses caused by at least the belief in witches and demons because I've treated some myself, and so have you. And that people can have sex with people or entities in the dream world. If you're a believer and you haven't had an incubus or succubus come down on you at one time or the other, I might question your commitment to the faith. Here's a notable quote. They turn into a woman and then they sleep with the man and collect his spermata. Then they turn into the man and they sleep with the man and deposit that sperm and reproduce more of themselves. This is the very philosophy that's always been used against premarital sex, or really any kind of profligate sex, because as they say, got him. There's always something left over inside or on of the other people, and that the protein in sperm can be a very deleterious addition to a person's protein profile. And certainly I feel that way personally. And I know that if Nephilim came down and had children, Gibborim, with women, they would have to leave something in there. So I don't really have a hard time believing that at all. In fact, I do believe it. Here's another strange issue. Dr. Emanuel talks about gay marriage, saying it can result in adults marrying children. I don't quite understand that. Not enough is explained here. But I just don't know quite how far to go with this, because the act of homosexual union and the leaving of the protein in the rectum is what I have read of scientific reports saying that that is a very dangerous practice because the proteins are foreign to the body, which can cause infections and even cancers. That's why it is recommended that if somebody has sexual relations in that way, they need to clean out good. Imagine also the corruption in the bowel, so full of harmful bacteria. And if you don't think so, try a little chunk of it and see how long it takes you to get well after being deleteriously sick. Dr. Emanuel also talks about generational curses, that she can remove those through prayer, or curses received from ancestors that are transmitted through the placenta. The world does not understand these things. The world thinks this is craziness. But you and I, we know about soul ties and generational curses and sexual activity with foreign or alien entities, and many of us have actually experienced that in our sleep, whether we liked it or not. Is that crazy? I don't think it's crazy at all. In fact, how many teachings have I put out about this very thing? And why do we have success in binding up soul ties or casting them out, or in alleviating a victim's suffering through casual exorcisms time after time? Or how many times have we seen somebody come in for a deliverance meeting or for prayer to bind something up, that in the middle of it, the person gets up and runs out the door? That's not hard for me to believe, because I've seen it many times. I don't know what the doctors have in their cards, because they hold them close to the chest. But I know, and you know, what is eminently perceivable, what we have seen with our own eyes and touched with our own hands, might go so far as to say, cast out with our own voice. I've got an interview to do right now, so I'm going to have to come back to this. Trust me, this isn't easy for me.
I have one little correction and an addition as well. First of all, as we found out today, it is not the hydroxychloroquine that actually heals coronavirus. It really has no effect. That's true. Except it opens up channels for the zinc to get to the disease and eradicate it. The zinc can't get in there without the hydroxychloroquine opening up that channel. And that probably goes for the Z-Pack or the steroid as well. It's a channel opener for the medication that works. So that's my little correction. I just learned this today. My question is, obviously, a medical doctor is not qualified to speak about demons at all. What do they know about that? Or they might know how to lance a boil or prepare an ice pack, but to say that somebody is crazy because they believe and know that demonic entities and evil people like witches can indeed curse someone toward receiving a disease, what I want to ask you is, what qualifies, educational-wise, a person to actually speak as an expert on the subjects of demonology and exorcism? What is the university qualification for that? Can you tell me that? Maybe we can find somebody that has that qualification to speak toward that.
As a matter of fact, I can tell you what the educational qualification is if one is needed, and that is a doctorate in divinity. That means 4 years of undergraduate college for the bachelor degree, 3 to 4 years for the Master of Divinity degree, and then from 18 months to 2 years to gain the doctorate degree. And as you know, I have attained that degree in the best schools in the country. One thing I have learned is that to be a good judge of this, what's more important than any degrees, because they really don't teach much of this in the seminary, is the experience that goes into a successful exorcism. Now, we read in the literature that occasionally a doctor is invited into an exorcism session. That is, the doctor should always be there, but a doctor that is a fill-in for the regular doctor that doesn't have any experience in that world. And what we hear from testimonies coming from these doctors that go in to observe the exorcism is that their minds are changed about the subject. And even if they can't get a hold of the idea of demons or evil spirits, they can certainly get a hold of the results. And that especially when, during the exorcism, there is turmoil. In a difficult exorcism, you will see ectoplasm coming out of the nose, the mouth, even the ears sometimes. Quite often, a lot of crazy sounds going on in the background. Sometimes poltergeist will be throwing stuff around the room and maybe even throwing you around the room. And then again, I could testify with my degrees and all to the fact that I have been attacked, and more than once, by both incubus and succubus. And I learned that the only way I could get rid of those things that some witch put on me was to command them in the name of Jesus. And why Jesus instead of Yeshua? Because these demons are stupid. They don't know the name of Yeshua. They've been cast out by the name of Jesus for so many centuries that they are like the average pew-sitting Christian that knows neither the Father's name or the Son's name. And I am not about to take the time to educate a demon in this, because it's best not to let a demon speak at all. So I'm claiming to have the educational degrees and the experience to be an expert in this area, and I suspect that Dr. Stella Emanuel is also an expert in that she has a medical degree, which of course doesn't teach anything like this, but she has the experience, and evidently a lot of it. So that's my answer to the question. And what you can find in my podcasts and YouTube videos as well are probably 50 of them that are on the subject of demonization, demonology, Nephilim, sexual sin, soul ties, deliverance ministry, self-deliverance, and many first-hand examples that went into those presentations. You can find some of those in the Hearing Voices series on YouTube. Just go to my site at www.youtube1.org, click on playlists, click on Hearing Voices, and I think there's 25 or 30 right in a row that deal with these particular subjects, including interviews with demon-possessed people. Ex-demon-possessed people. What's a little surprising to me is that exorcism works for disease occasionally in a non-believer, because what's important is to have that aspect of faith within the patient, or build that faith up, because the building up of faith is like the taking of the hydroxychloroquine. It opens up the channel so that the medicine can get in there. Amen?
Oh, well, I don't want you to think I'm your yes man, but that makes a whole lot of sense. So you are the expert that I recommended that we would have at the very beginning, and I have been part of that Hearing Voices playlist, and I have been here when we have gone through together some of these exorcisms and healings through prayer. And I know what you're saying is true. Eyewitness. I'm not even a doctor of anything, but once I was a freedom fighter in Ukraine, back in the old country.
Yes, and someday we're going to hear all about that, I hope.
You have been listening to Jackson Snyder Presents on Hebrew Nation Radio.
Testing. Well, my friend, after that, we are both here very tired. When you get on these controversial subjects, it seems like everything starts coming against you, including the weather. We had thunderclaps there during that time that caused dropouts in our software that we had to make up a few times. So if you don't mind, we are going to leave you now, go to our separate homes, maybe have a little glass of wine, a piece of cheese, just a morsel of bread, and we're going to pray for you. If you need help in some of these areas, don't neglect getting in touch with us at www.yahad.me, YAHAD.me. So I leave you with one of our favorite musical compositions entitled I Stand, I Called, Psalm 120 from the Elohim's collection.
I stand for peace, but they are for war. I speak for peace, but war is all the more. My soul has dwelt with him who longs for war. So deliver me from my dwelling in the sands, from the tongue and its demands, from the mighty's bloody hands, to your peaceful Beulah land. For that wild and craven beast, its war will never cease, but I stand for peace. So deliver me from my dwelling in the sands, from the tongue and its demands, from the mighty's bloody hands, to your peaceful Beulah lands. For that wild and craven beast, its war will never cease, but I stand for peace. When I was troubled, I called upon Yahweh. When I was troubled, He heard my plea. When tongues were lying, I called upon Yahweh. He heard me calling and delivered me. I was in Meshach, I called upon Yahweh. I was in Kedar, He heard my plea. I was in bondage, I called upon Yahweh. He heard me calling and He rescued me. I was dwelling there among my enemies, among the men of battle, warlike men of lying lips, among deceitful men of war. I worked for peace. I tell you, they were enemies of peace and enemies of Israel. I was in battle, I called upon Yahweh. I was outnumbered, He saw my fleas. I was imprisoned, I called upon Yahweh. He heard me calling and He gave me peace. Sharp arrows grazed me, I called upon Yahweh. Red hot and charcoal, oh let me be. I will ascend now and try to find Yahweh. He saw me climbing and He came to me. I was dwelling there among my enemies, among the men of battle, warlike men of lying lips, among East.